grade 5s. In today's lesson we'll be talking about processing materials. Before we start, we just need to go through a few keywords that you need to know. The first one is combine, to mix or to join together. Next one is ingredients, the list of raw materials that are selected to go into the mixture. Ingredients can be like ingredients of a cake, examples, milk, sugar, flour, eggs. Those are all ingredients. Okay? A process is to change in different ways to get new materials or products with the new properties. So you'll take those ingredients of the cake mix, the flour, the milk, the sugar that I said, and it will go through a process of changing to become a baked cake. Products, something new and useful coming out of a process. Mixture is something that's made by mixing things together. Cement is a product made from clay and limestone that becomes hard when mixed with water. And then you have concrete, which is actually a mixture of sand, gravel, cement, and water. This is our last slide with keywords. Reinforced. If something is reinforced, it means it's strengthened with additional material. We'll get to that later as well. Plaster of Paris. This is a white powder that quickly becomes a hard solid when mixed with water. Paste is a thick mixture of a solid and a liquid. And then to dissolve means it mixes completely with water and disappears. Okay, let's move on to the actual processing of materials. Materials can be combined to make new materials. The properties of the new materials are often different from the properties of the original material. All right. For example, we can mix flour, yeast, and water. These are the original materials. We can mix these to make bread. Okay, bread is the new material, or as we like to call it, product. There are 5 different ways to process materials. First, you have mixing. Then you have mixing and setting, mixing and cooling, mixing and cooking, or mixing, drying, and firing. Before I explain the different ways of processing materials, you need to know what raw materials are. Raw materials are the items we use to make another product. For example, if you were baking a cake, the raw materials would include all of the ingredients: the flour, baking powder, eggs, sugar, milk, vanilla essence, everything. The product would look quite different to the raw materials because the raw materials have been processed. First way to process materials is through mixing. We can mix 2 or more materials together. For example, we could mix flour and water into a sticky paste to use as a glue. Another example would be mixing raw materials to bake a cake. Second way to process materials is by mixing and setting. Sometimes we can mix materials together and then leave them to set to become more solid. For example, we can mix sand, gravel, cement, and water. We leave it to set and it makes concrete. When it's set, concrete becomes hard and strong and is used to make pavements and bricks. Let's quickly take a look at plaster of Paris. This is made from gypsum and it is a powder which is mixed with water to make a paste that can be molded. All right? If you have broken your arm or leg before, you will know exactly what plaster of Paris is. Plaster of Paris, once it's set, it's used as plaster casts for broken bones. It's used for dental molds if you need to get braces. It's used to fill cracks in your wall or your ceiling. And it's also used for artwork. Third way to process materials is through mixing and cooling. Sometimes we mix ingredients for a pudding and then we have to put it in a cool place to set and become solid. Jelly is an example. Jelly can be made by mixing hot water and jelly powder, and then leaving the solution to cool down and set. The fourth way of processing a material is through mixing and cooking. Cooking is also a method of processing. Many different recipes can be made by mixing ingredients together and then cooking them on a stove or oven. This includes cakes, biscuits, bread. The cooked material has different properties from the original material. Think about what happens when you fry an egg, for example. A raw egg is soft and liquid. A cooked egg is solid and rubbery. And last but not least, mixing, drying, and firing. Bricks are made by firing or baking them in a special oven known as a kiln. This dries them out and makes them hard. Think about a time when you were in art class making pottery. You would use the clay that has already been mixed for you to make your art, and then you would leave it to dry and put it in the kiln to bake out. Once it comes out of the kiln, it's nice and hard. We can make materials stronger by reinforcing them with other materials. Reinforcing has been practiced since ancient times. The earliest man-made mixture was straw and mud, which were combined to make bricks. The straw reinforced the mud. Stay tuned for part 2.